Hi, in this video we're going to talk about balancing voiceover work with life problems. Now, I was originally planning to film a completely different video about something else to do with voiceover and productivity, but because of my current personal situation in terms of the health of various family members and various work that we've got going on in here, I thought it would be more pertinent, more relevant to talk about dealing with real-life problems when you're trying to manage a voiceover business instead. It's not a very voiceover-specific topic to discuss, but I still think it's actually incredibly relevant because we're all going through various different things at various different times. And I don't want to trivialize what's going on with me and my family at the moment, but by the same token, I thought that it would be quite useful because this is a creative outlet for me and I enjoy doing these videos. That's kind of partly one of the reasons why I do them, really, because no one's paying me. So I thought it would be good to come from a genuine place and talk about something that I'm feeling right now, which is how you deal with juggling all of this responsibility with caring after the people that you love. Possibly the biggest step for me in terms of coming to terms with the situation is to acknowledge it. Normally, if you're employed by someone, then people would tell you to talk to your boss so that they know rather than keeping it a secret. And obviously, when you're the voiceover artist, you are the boss. So the first thing to do is acknowledge that there are exceptional circumstances. Cut yourself that slack, but sit down, appreciate that you're not going to be able to do what you normally do because you have only a finite amount of mental bandwidth as a result. The first thing to do is acknowledge that the situation is extreme in some way rather than, trying to do what you would normally do. The second thing following on from that is to adjust your goals appropriately. I've certainly found that on the one hand I've enjoyed the structure that I have in terms of how much marketing that I do every day and every week, how many voiceover jobs that I do as well at the same time. But I know that my concentration levels are not necessarily what they should be throughout the day. So rather than keeping to those same targets stringently and then always falling under them and therefore getting frustrated and annoyed or upset and all of those kind of things, is what I've been trying to do, and it has helped, is to go, okay, I'm feeling like this and therefore I need to adjust certain targets accordingly. And as people who have watched my videos will know, my targets are mainly about marketing and outreach and all of those kind of things, as well as the number of auditions that you do and all of that kind of thing. So I have necessarily lowered all of those things, but that's rather than either trying to keep them the same and then just reaching a snapping point and stopping altogether, trickling on little but consistently is something that I found really useful. I'm not saying that if you need to take a break, if things get too extreme, then by all means take a break, but being forewarned is forearmed, I think. So trying to consciously adjust those targets is a kind of a good way of acknowledging the situation is difficult, but that you are making adjustments to make it less difficult. Of course, a crucial thing about being a voiceover artist is communication, and you need to communicate with your clients, but you need to communicate with your clients only really when it's relevant. And it will depend on what your relationship with each client is. If someone is just asking me about my availability or my rates or these kind of things, something very much in passing, then obviously I don't really need to volunteer particularly pertinent information, personal information about my circumstances. It's simply not relevant. You need to keep that relevant as well. Not overshare, being very British about it, not overshare at all. But by the same token, if, as I've had, some situations where people have said, oh, can you record right now, or can you record at X, Y, or Z circumstances, or if there's going to be a project that's going to take 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and I've got some flags popping up, then I will raise that immediately and be very clear that there are family issues or there are logistical issues. Sometimes if people want me to record on the same day because of the building works, for example, I can't necessarily offer the turnaround time that I would. So I'm very clear about that in terms of communication. If someone is looking for that. Similarly, in terms of certain projects which may need a sustained amount of recording over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, if for any reason I need to go somewhere else and I don't want to resort to using a travel setup, then I need to make clients aware that that is the case so that they can make their selections accordingly. Or alternatively, I do need to focus on making sure that my travel setup, and I do have one, is up to spec and that I can replicate my recordings when traveling as well as I can at home, so that that offering is completely clear. But either way, it's just making sure that you suit the communication to what you're getting back. And then finally, it's been appreciating people's flexibility in these situations. And I'm not saying being over effusive just because someone cuts you some slack or is willing to wait a day or 2 days or 3 days for a job as opposed to 20 minutes or an hour. But to appreciate when people are being accommodating and to acknowledge that, again, without necessarily going into great detail or depths that they might not need to get into, but to acknowledge when people are doing your favors, they're providing you flexibility in that way, I think is very valuable, and that should be acknowledged. Admittedly, I don't think I'm saying anything particularly revelatory in my conclusions from this current circumstances, situations, but I just think it's important to understand that when we're trying to keep the momentum of our own business going, we need to be very conscious in how we deal with circumstances. Otherwise, it can get into a balance of, oh my God, there's all this family, real life stuff that I'm failing to deal with, and there's on the other side all of your work, and there's this extreme balance of, oh, if I continue to work then I don't care about the family, and if I care about the family then I don't work. So the first thing to do is to identify the issue, the problem, as much as possible, rather than letting things continue to ride on, pretending that there isn't a problem or anything else like that. Sorry if this video has been a bit rambly. It's been a bit of a rambly week, generally speaking, but thank you to everybody for all of the nice comments that you've left on my previous videos as well. Please do leave comments below if you have any other additional suggestions that people might find useful, and I will see you next week.